His lips brushed against mine, and for the first time in years, I felt alive, dangerously alive. My breath trembled, my heart thudded in my chest like a guilty drum, and every moral line I had ever drawn blurred in a single heartbeat. The sound of the hotel rain outside muffled the guilt rising inside me. His touch was not my husband's, but it set my soul on fire in ways Ethan never had. I remember whispering his name, Dylan, in a voice I could hardly recognize as my own. I thought no one would ever find out. I thought it would stay hidden, just a night no one would ever know about. But I was wrong. So painfully wrong. Before I take you any deeper into this story, I want to pause for a second to appreciate all of you, my loyal listeners, my new and returning viewers. Thank you for giving me the courage to tell stories like this, raw, honest, and sometimes painfully real. To those who have subscribed, you are the heartbeat of this channel. And to those who are watching and have not yet subscribed, I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button. It is the fuel that keeps this channel alive. Remember to share your thoughts in the comments below when this story ends, because your words keep me inspired to keep going. Now, let me take you back to the night everything began, the night that turned my world upside down. I was Melissa Carter, 34 years old, married for 9 years to Ethan Carter, a good man. He was patient, calm, and everything people said a woman should want. We had a comfortable suburban life in Denver, Colorado. A nice house with white shutters, 2 cars parked side by side, and neighbors who waved when we walked our dog. From the outside, our life looked perfect. But inside our home, silence had replaced laughter, and routine had replaced romance. Ethan and I barely touched anymore. We barely even talked. He came home tired from work, and I spent my evenings scrolling through my phone, watching shows, pretending not to notice the distance between us growing wider every day. It was not hatred, it was numbness. The kind of emptiness that creeps into a marriage slowly until you stop recognizing who you both are. Then came the corporate retreat, 3 days in a Denver mountain resort hosted by the company where I worked as a marketing coordinator. Ethan encouraged me to go. He said it would be good for me to get out and have fun for a change. I remember smiling at that, wondering if he even realized how ironic it sounded. That was where I met Dylan Brooks. He was one of the regional project managers, confident, funny, the kind of man who carried an easy smile that could disarm you before you even realized it. He was nothing like Ethan. Dylan's presence filled the room, and when he talked to you, it felt like you were the only person who mattered. He complimented the smallest things, the way I laughed, the way I carried myself, things my husband had long stopped noticing. The first night, we sat near the fireplace in the lodge bar. Everyone else was laughing, drinking, and telling stories about office life. Dylan and I sat close, talking about everything and nothing. I remember the way his knee brushed against mine. It was subtle, accidental at first, but it left a warmth that lingered. The next day, we were paired for a group activity, something about team building. We spent the entire afternoon hiking through the pines, and every glance he gave me said something words could not. When the day ended, we both lingered behind the group, standing near a view of the mountains painted gold by the setting sun. He looked at me with those calm, deep brown eyes and said softly, "You deserve to feel alive again." That sentence, it should have ended there. But it did not. That night, there was a party at the resort bar. Music, dim lights, laughter echoing through the wooden lodge. I had more wine than I should have, but not enough to forget what I was doing. Dylan found me sitting alone by the fire again. He asked if I wanted to take a walk, to get some air. My heart said no. My body said yes. We walked in silence through the rain, the kind that smelled like pine and earth. The sound of our footsteps mixed with thunder far away. We stopped under a porch awning, both drenched, both breathing harder than the rain should have caused. I looked up at him, and before I could think, he leaned in and kissed me. It was soft at first, then desperate, the kind of kiss that steals every ounce of reason. I should have pulled away. I should have remembered Ethan. But in that moment, all I could think about was how alive I felt, how wanted I felt. His hands traced my face like he was memorizing it. The rain poured harder, and we slipped back inside, breathless, shivering, and completely lost in a desire I could no longer control. What happened after that will stay with me forever. The room was dim, the sheets smelled of cedar and wine, and every moment felt like a storm I could not escape. It was not love, it was a hunger born of emptiness and guilt. Every touch reminded me of the lies I was weaving even before I spoke them. When it was over, we lay in silence. I could hear the rain again. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of what I had just done settle over me like a shadow. Dylan whispered something, a promise, maybe, but I barely heard him. In that quiet, my heart screamed one truth I refused to face: I had crossed a line I could never uncross. The next morning, I acted like nothing happened. I smiled through breakfast, joked with my coworkers, and avoided Dylan's gaze as much as I could. When I returned home, Ethan greeted me with a kiss on the cheek and asked, "Did you have a good time?" I said yes. He smiled, completely unaware that the woman he was holding was no longer the same. That night, as he lay beside me, sleeping peacefully, I stared at the ceiling and told myself it would never happen again. That no one would ever find out. That what I did was buried, sealed by silence and rain. But the truth has a strange way of surfacing, especially when you think it never will. And mine was about to rise like a storm I could not stop. The first few weeks after the retreat felt like I was living in two different worlds, the one where I was Melissa Carter, the loyal wife, and the one where I was Melissa, the woman who made a terrible mistake and prayed it would stay buried. I told myself that I could move on. I convinced myself that one night did not define me, that as long as Ethan never found out, our life could go back to normal. I cooked dinner, laughed at his jokes, made weekend plans, and even initiated affection just to prove to myself that nothing had changed. But everything had. It started small, the guilt. It came in flashes, like lightning striking at random. I would be brushing my teeth, and suddenly, I would remember Dylan's hands on me. I would be folding Ethan's shirts, and his scent would make my stomach twist with shame. I could not even look at myself in the mirror without feeling like a stranger was staring back. Then came the messages. At first, they were harmless. Dylan would text during office hours, little things like, "Thinking about you" or "Wish I could see you again." I ignored them. But when I stopped responding, he became persistent. The texts came at night, long after Ethan had fallen asleep beside me. Sometimes, I would wake up to 5 or 6 missed calls. It terrified me. One night, as I sat in bed scrolling through my phone, Ethan turned over, his voice groggy. "Who keeps texting you this late?" I panicked and muttered something about a coworker asking about a report. He nodded and went back to sleep, but I could feel his unease. His hand brushed mine beneath the sheets, as if trying to reach me, but I pulled away, pretending to stretch. I hated myself for that. At work, I avoided Dylan like he was fire, and maybe he was. The more distance I tried to create, the more he seemed to close in. He cornered me once in the elevator, his tone calm but his eyes sharp. "You cannot just act like it never happened, Melissa. You were there too." My heart raced. "It was a mistake, Dylan," I whispered, keeping my eyes on the elevator door. He smirked slightly. "You did not seem to think so that night." The doors opened, and I walked away without looking back. But his words clung to me like smoke. From that moment, paranoia became my shadow. I checked my phone constantly, deleted messages before Ethan could ever see them, and lived in a constant state of fear that one small slip could destroy everything. But secrets have weight. And mine was becoming unbearable. Ethan began to notice. He started asking quiet questions. "Is everything all right? You seem distracted lately." Or, "You have been spending a lot of time at work lately. Are they piling on projects again?" Each time, I smiled, lied, and changed the subject. He looked at me differently, though, longer, more carefully. As if he could sense something I was trying desperately to hide. One evening, I was making dinner when Ethan came into the kitchen holding my phone. "Your phone was buzzing nonstop." I thought something was wrong. My heart stopped. I dried my hands quickly and reached for it. "Oh, it is just a workgroup chat." He nodded but hesitated before handing it back. "I did not open it, but you should silence your notifications at night. You barely sleep anymore." His words sounded gentle, but his eyes held something that made my stomach drop: suspicion. That night, as I lay beside him, I felt the distance between us more than ever. He reached out, his arm wrapping around me like he used to in the early years. I wanted to cry. I wanted to confess everything right there, but I did not. I just whispered, "I love you," hoping it might erase the guilt clawing inside me. It did not. The next day, Dylan sent another message. This one was different. "If you do not talk to me, I might just tell him everything myself." My hand shook as I read it. The fear that had been lingering in the shadows finally took shape. Dylan was no longer the charming man from the retreat. He had turned into a threat, one that could destroy my marriage, my job, and my reputation. I confronted him after work in the parking lot, my voice trembling with anger. "You cannot do this, Dylan. You said you would keep it between us." He leaned against his car, smiling. "You think you can just use me and walk away? I am not your husband, Melissa. I see you. You needed me that night, and you still do." I felt a surge of disgust, not just at him, but at myself. It was a mistake. A one-time mistake. He shrugged. "Then you better make sure your husband never finds out." The drive home that evening felt endless. Every passing car light reflected off my windshield like flashing warnings. I parked in our driveway and sat there for several minutes, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I thought about running. Leaving. But then I saw Ethan through the window, standing in the kitchen, waiting for me. That sight, his quiet loyalty, broke me more than Dylan's threats ever could. I tried to fix things. I cooked more, smiled more, made plans for a weekend getaway. I wanted to rebuild what I had shattered inside myself. But guilt has a way of bleeding through every good intention. One Saturday morning, I caught Ethan staring at me as I made coffee. His face was unreadable. "You have been different lately," he said softly. "Not in a bad way, just different. Is something bothering you?" I forced a laugh. "No, not at all. Work is just stressful." He studied me for a moment longer and then nodded. But something about the way he turned away made me realize he did not believe me. That afternoon, I deleted Dylan's number, every message, every photo, everything. I told myself it was finally over. But secrets do not die that easily. The next week, I came home to find Ethan sitting on the couch, my phone on the table in front of him. His expression was empty. Cold. "Melissa," he said quietly, "we need to talk." And in that instant, I knew. He had found out. The silence in the living room was heavier than any sound could have been. The late afternoon sunlight streamed through the curtains, casting pale golden lines across Ethan's face. His eyes were fixed on me, cold and unblinking. My phone lay on the coffee table between us like a weapon, silent but deadly. For a few seconds, I could not move. My mind spun in circles, searching for some way to rewrite the truth he already knew. But the look on his face told me that there was no point. "Ethan," I finally whispered, my voice trembling. "What is going on?" He leaned back slowly in the chair, crossing his arms. "I was trying to find a photo you took of us last month. You said it was in your gallery. When I opened your phone, I saw messages. Messages from someone named Dylan." His voice did not rise, but every word landed like a hammer against my chest. "Tell me who he is." I swallowed hard, my mouth dry as sand. "He is a coworker." He nodded once, eyes never leaving mine. "And what is he to you?" I could have lied. I could have said anything. But the truth was sitting in the space between us already, undeniable and suffocating. My lips parted, but no sound came out. Tears welled in my eyes before I even realized they were there. Ethan's voice broke the silence again, softer this time, but sharper. You slept with him, did you not? The air in the room shifted. It felt like all the oxygen had been sucked out, leaving only the echo of my guilt. I nodded, barely, unable to meet his eyes. He let out a long breath, part disbelief, part pain. He stood up, pacing slowly across the living room. I could see the veins in his hands tighten as he clenched his fists. After everything we have been through, he said, his voice cracking slightly. After all the nights I stayed up waiting for you to come home from work, after all the times I believed you when you said you were tired, you were just tired. I covered my face, sobbing quietly. I am so sorry, Ethan. It was a mistake. I never meant for it to happen. He turned to face me, his expression raw and broken. A mistake, he repeated. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did was a choice. You chose him. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to say something that might make him see that I had not fallen out of love, I had just lost my way. But nothing I could say would ever sound right. He sat down again, his hands trembling as he rubbed his face. For a long moment, he did not speak. The only sound was my quiet crying and the faint ticking of the wall clock. Finally, he said, How long? One night, I whispered. It happened once, and I regretted it the moment it was over. His eyes met mine, and I saw the disbelief in them. You regretted it, but you kept lying. You kept coming home to me, pretending nothing happened. You slept beside me, knowing what you did. Tell me, Melissa, how could you do that? I had no answer. I stared down at my hands, wishing I could disappear into the floor. He stood up again, walked to the window, and stared outside for what felt like an eternity. When he turned back, there was something final in his expression, the kind of stillness that only comes when someone's heart has shattered completely. I loved you, he said quietly. More than anyone ever could. I trusted you completely. And now every memory I have of you feels like a lie. Please do not say that, I whispered. Please, Ethan, I can fix this. I can. He raised his hand slightly, cutting me off. No. You cannot fix this. You broke something that does not heal. I felt the words hit me deep, right where the guilt had already dug its claws. I tried to reach for him, but he stepped back. The space between us felt like a canyon I could never cross again. Pack your things, he said quietly. You cannot stay here. My breath caught. Ethan, please, this is our home. It was, he said coldly. It is not anymore. The firmness in his voice left no room for argument. I wanted to fall to my knees and beg him, but I knew it would only make it worse. So, I went upstairs, my legs weak beneath me. Every photo on the wall felt like a knife, our wedding picture, the vacation smiles, the birthdays, the anniversaries. They all stared back at me like ghosts of a life I had destroyed. As I packed, tears blurred my vision. I could hear him moving around downstairs, pacing, opening doors, maybe trying to calm himself. But there was no calm left between us. Only wreckage. When I came back down with my suitcase, he was standing by the door, arms folded. His eyes were red, but his face was composed, emotionless. Where will you go? He asked. I do not know, I admitted, my voice small. Maybe to my sister's place for a while. He nodded slightly. Good. I will have someone deliver the rest of your things later. I cannot look at you right now. I wanted to tell him that I understood. That I deserved his anger. That I would never forgive myself either. But all that came out was a broken whisper, I am sorry. He did not respond. He just opened the door and stepped aside. As I walked out, the cool evening air hit me like reality itself. I turned back once, just once, hoping for some sign that he might call me back, that maybe there was still a trace of love left. But he stood there, still, silent, unmoving. And then the door closed. That sound, the quiet click of the door shutting, was the sound of everything ending. Days turned into weeks. I stayed with my sister, moving through life like a ghost. I went to work, avoided Dylan completely, and tried to breathe in the spaces between guilt and regret. He sent a few messages at first, apologies, attempts to explain himself, but I never replied. I wanted nothing more to do with him. Sometimes, I drove past the house Ethan and I shared. The curtains were always closed. I wondered if he had already replaced me with peace, with quiet, with someone better. Someone faithful. I used to think secrets kept me safe. I used to think if no one found out, I could keep my world intact. But the truth is, secrets are just time bombs waiting to explode, and when they do, they destroy everything around them. Now, I live with the echo of that explosion every single day. I thought no one would ever find out. But he did. And it cost me everything.